So tonight what I'm going to cover, is dementia care at home and the practical tips. I know Dr. Lone last week would have covered a lot of the medical issues and the physiology around dementia. Now we will start with a little bit of that background, but it's mostly about the practical areas about looking after somebody at home with dementia, and also about yourselves as caregivers at home and how to look after yourselves, which is very vitally important. So what is dementia? So dementia is caused by progressive disorders of the brain. So in other words, there's a lot of things happening in the brain that causes different problems, like memory loss. And the biggest problem initially with dementia is short-term memory loss. Our thinking ability, our communication is affected, recognition of people and objects, our perception, our behaviours, and the ability to perform everyday tasks. So all of these are caused by the disease of the brain that's killing off the brain cells and causing a problem with our cognitive thinking as well. So just to see what does cause it, we don't know what causes dementia. And just to say that no two people with dementia are never the same. People with dementia are individuals, and everybody will go through their dementia differently. So, as I say, it's not a normal part of ageing either. It's not something that everybody gets as we get older. It is a disease of the brain, and just to remember that. There are risk factors involved, so we have to look at our lifestyles. Obviously, increasing age, the older we get, the more at risk we are of developing a dementia. Family history, there is a genetic link with dementia, but it's a very small, what we know at the moment is very small. It's about 5% of people that develop a dementia is through family history. And it's generally people who develop it younger, under 65 years of age. And you do find that somebody with a genetic link is that they go through the disease a lot faster than somebody developing it that's not genetic later on in over 65. Cardiovascular disease has a role to play. It can cause it can be a big risk factor for dementia. You find people with mini strokes or heart disease. Causing problems with the blood vessels can cause the brain cells to die, which can cause a dementia. Head and brain trauma, if somebody has a history of head or brain trauma, it can actually increase their risk of developing a dementia later on. And the key on that slide there is that lifestyle matters. So we all hear it every day, but it's so important and still important, and also for dementia and for reducing our risk of dementia, is that exercising, eating well, staying socially active and using your brain will all help to reduce our risk towards developing dementia. But also for the person with dementia, especially in the early stages, lifestyle is extremely important to keep people exercising, good nutrition, and especially being socially active. And we know with all the research out there that being socially active is crucial to keep people involved in community and mixing with people to help to keep their memories alive for longer. So just dementia then is an umbrella term. It actually covers, there's at least 100 types of dementia. So the ones that we hear most of are obviously the Alzheimer's disease. And Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia. And as well as that, there's a mixed dementias, there's vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, and frontotemporal dementia. Now, these are the most common types of dementia that you'll be hearing about. But Alzheimer's disease would make up about 50% of the types of dementia that you will be, that are out there. But as I say, there are over 100 different types of dementia. And with dementia, with Alzheimer's disease, what's happening is there's plaques and tangles in the brain that are causing the brain cells to die, and therefore the person is suffering from neurological problems and cognitive problems as well associated with that. So it's the disease of the brain causing the brain cells to die. Now, I won't go into too much into the physiology and that today, because I think it's better, what I've been asked to speak about is the more practical issues at home with somebody on dementia. But we have a lot of information booklets at the back with more information in them, and there's plenty of stuff online that I'll give you the links to later on if you want to look more on the background to dementia. So the cognitive symptoms of dementia, what happens to people when they develop a dementia? Well, first and foremost, people notice that they have a memory loss, and it's always generally the short-term memory loss. What happened yesterday? What happened 10 minutes ago? And it actually disrupts daily life. I mean, we all have memory losses. I have them every day myself, the older I get. Sometimes I have to stop and think. But it's when it disrupts our daily life. So if you forget to go to an appointment, or you forget how to use the remote control, and that, or forgetting how to make a cup of tea. So difficulty completing familiar tasks, things like getting up and getting dressed in the morning. As I said, making a cup of tea. I want you to go home this evening and make a cup of tea for yourselves and count the steps that it takes to make a cup of tea. And I'm sure you'll come up with about 25 by the time you open the press and take out the tea caddy and lift the lid and kettle and taps and everything else. So these are the areas where people fall down in the initial stages with dementia. Challenges with planning and problem solving. So organising to book tickets for something, maybe organising a night out or that, not being able to organise that where they would normally have been very good at planning and organising. Disorientation in time and place, maybe coming out of the shopping centre and forgetting what road to take home, going the wrong road home. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. So recognising something but not being able to know what it's for or that, or being like maybe somebody asking you to put the milk in the fridge and you go over and you're not really sure, you know it's to go into the fridge but you're putting it into the press, or somebody asking you to set the table and you can't really remember what utensils to use or where to put them at the table. So all of those little things beginning to happen in the early stages. Misplacing things and losing the ability to replace the steps. So this happens quite regularly. You hear keys, handbags, money, wallets, lots of things going missing. And a lot of the time, when somebody gets an early dementia, to compensate, they start to put things in a safe place, and then they can't find them. And oftentimes it's you or the person next to them that they're blaming. What did you do with my keys, and what did you do? Where did you put my wallet? Decreased or poor judgment, so making the wrong decision, going out to the shops, maybe putting slippers on and it's raining, or maybe bringing your umbrella and just getting wet and forgetting to put it up. So things like that. Withdrawal from work or social activities. And this would be very common in the early stages, because when somebody gets dementia, earlier on, they know themselves that they're making mistakes. They know themselves that this isn't right, and if I speak to them, I won't recognise them. I'm going to make a fool of myself. So slowly but surely, they start to withdraw. And this is very sad, because we want to keep people with dementia out socially and keep them in work for as long as we can. But they do tend to withdraw. And it's our role, really, to help them, to support them in work and socially. Changes in mood and personality, and that's a very difficult thing for families, as I'm sure some of you have come across. You know, dad, who's always been in good form and, you know, very, very respectful, is now maybe cursing or shouting that he never did before. So it is difficult, but it's the disease that's causing this problem, the brain cells, as I say, that are dying, and it's not the dad or the husband or the wife, it's just the disease that's causing that. And problems with speaking and writing. So not being able to finish a sentence, you know, can I have a cup of, and just not being able to get the word tea or coffee out, something they're using all their lives as well. And one of the biggest fears that people with an early stage dementia has is not being seen as a person. You know, their self-esteem gets very low, and they get very, very insecure, and they need lots and lots and lots of reassurance. Disorientation, more cognitive and memory problems then, disorientation in time and place, confusion. You'll find they may be perfectly normal in the morning time, and then by the afternoon they could be quite very confused, and you might find some of the family members coming over and saying, there's nothing wrong with dad, I don't know what you're talking about, and you're living with dad and you're seeing it constantly. But when someone else comes in, another member of the family comes in, they seem to rise to the occasion and everything seems to be fine. So that often happens where they get fluctuations in confusion. Delusions and hallucinations, these can be part of it. It's not everybody that will have all of these symptoms, but these are common, and some of you may have come across them already. Thinking they're somewhere that they're not, thinking that they're not at home and they want to go home, and that this isn't their home and they don't recognise this area where they're in. Or even hallucinations where they might see something like mice coming out from under the cupboard over there, or that there's somebody in the room. That plant over there might be a man coming to get me. And these are very real for somebody with a dementia, and we can't say, don't be silly, that's not there, because that is their reality, and that is what they are feeling at the time. So reassurance, and that must be really terrifying for your mum. I know it's really frightening. Come on, let's go over and redirect them out of the room or away from what they're feeling. False accusations, you could be blamed for a lot of things. I'm sure some of you have come across that already. And then problems with decision and problem solving again. And then another big problem for older people with dementia then, or anybody with a dementia, is medication management, and how to, if they're living alone, it's all about how are they taking their medications and getting mixed up, taking too much and that. So that we would see that in home instead as a big problem. And it's one of the areas that our caregivers would be involved in, would be reminding them to take their medication, seeing that they've taken it, and ensuring that they haven't taken it too many or that, and reporting accordingly. One of the tests that they do for somebody with an early stage, you know, where they're diagnosing dementia, one of the things is an MMSE. It's a memory and mental status testing, and I'm sure you know people who've had this done. But if you think about it, if you've somebody with an early dementia and you know they're functioning very well at home and everything seems to be doing fine, they've got a few memory issues, but mum is doing really fine. But if you actually ask mum to sit down and draw a clock with 3 o'clock on it, I'm sure if I asked any of you to come up to the board and draw a clock with the hands at 3 o'clock, you'd have no problem. And none of us would have a problem. But somebody with an early stage dementia might be functioning quite well, and yet this is what they're actually come up and draw. So they don't. You can see how their mind their brain isn't functioning as before. So they have 13 numbers, and it's not even a real circle, and the arms are in the wrong place. So you can see then that definitely mum is having problems, even though she's functioning quite well. Now, I just talk a little bit about problems that people have when they get dementia. And behaviours, you see people acting out in different ways. And generally, the reason for this is because they've got a communication need that's not being met. So they may be in pain, they may be hungry, they may be just annoyed because you left your shoes on the floor. It might be something as simple as that. But because of their communication skills starts to deteriorate, they may not be able to verbalise it. So you might find they start to get agitated and angry. So a lot of people living with a person with dementia will witness behavioural problems, and I'm sure some of you will recognise some of these that I'm talking about now. So aggression and anger, hiding and misplacing things, rummaging, going to the drawers, rummaging through things, going through jewellery boxes, tool boxes, rummaging. These are just behaviours. Now, not every behaviour is a problem, because rummaging, you know, for somebody that's enjoying rummaging through a box is fine, but some of them can be you can be at risk, or the person themselves can be at risk. So we do have to intervene in certain behaviours. Anxiety and agitation is a big part of it as well, and you can imagine if you've got an early dementia, the fog that's over you, and that the uncertainty and not knowing what's going to happen next, and not recognising people, and strangers coming to the door, and all of these things causing anxiety. And you can just completely understand why somebody would be getting anxious a lot in the early stages of dementia. Mood changes, somebody that, you know, getting very depressed, getting very down, maybe laughing inappropriately or crying inappropriately. The brain cells in the emotional part of our brain can be affected as well. So you see them, you know, inappropriate times laughing and crying, and that can be very difficult for families, obviously for the person as well. And refusal, I'm sure some of you have come across, no, I don't want to do it, no, I'm not going out, no, I'm not having my wash, and no, and it's just their way of probably taking back control, and I'm in charge here, you know, everything else has been taken away from me, but I'm deciding I'm not going to do it. So that can be a problem if it's ongoing, especially for eating and getting dressed and bathing and that. Other behaviours would be false accusations, which could be a difficult thing if we've got a caregiver in with a client, and the client is complaining that the caregiver is stealing their jewellery and that. Or it could be just another family member that they're saying, oh, Mary was in and she took my checkbook or whatever. So that can be a very real thing for families to deal with. As I said, refusal. Repetition and fixation. I'm sure you've come across that, where people are saying the same thing over and over and over and over again. And that can be so wearing on people living with somebody with dementia. It not necessarily affects the person that's actually saying it, but the person that's listening to it all the time. It can be very wearing. Now, it can be also a need for maybe some reassurance. They may be looking for some reassurance about something. But the whole thing about repetition is we need to be there with them. We do need to be answering them because they don't know they've asked you the same question 10 minutes ago. So being with them and answering them. And one of the tools that you can use if somebody is repeating themselves constantly is to say, oh, Mom, let's go and have a cup of tea, or let's go change the subject, redirect them to something that they like doing, and be with them and be, engage with them and chat to them about familiar things and that, because that actually can help to reassure them and can actually, stop the questioning, the continuous questioning. Sexual inappropriateness too. Obviously, the cells in the brain affecting our behaviour can be affected. So therefore, people can come out with sexual inappropriate talk or that, and that can be very difficult for families to witness, as you know. And so redirection in that situation it works quite well to redirect somebody to something else. Wandering as well. I always say that if I get a dementia, I'll be a wanderer, because I love being out walking. I love being out at the sea. I love being out in the countryside, and I just love to be outdoors. So I know that if I ever get dementia, I'll be the one knocking at the door to get out. So wandering, it's probably just a need for somebody to be more active and more exercising. Maybe they're a little bit bored. Maybe they're lost. Maybe they can't find where the door that they want to get into, and they're just wandering around the house looking for maybe the bathroom or the kitchen or that. So we all need to be detectives in a way when we're living with somebody with dementia, to try and see, I wonder what it is, I wonder what's causing them to be wandering about. And social withdrawal as well. So that's something that we need to intervene, especially in the early stage, well, in all stages, because we do want to be making sure that people are socially active. I mean, we all love to have friends around. We all love our family around. I must check my phone about 5 times a day because I have 2 children living abroad to see what the news is. I mean, just because I get dementia doesn't mean I don't want to know that information. I'll still want to know it. I'll still want somebody coming up and telling me all about the grandchildren or whatever. Even though I'm not communicating, I still like to hear it. So keeping people socially active is so important. The severity of symptoms obviously differs, and obviously things like repetition, hiding things, social withdrawal, and that are not actually putting the person at risk. But things like wandering, medication management, confusion, sexual inappropriate behaviour, aggression, hostility, and poor judgment can all be problems for the person and for the people that they're interacting with on a daily basis. So these are the areas where we need to interact and just to minimise the behaviour and to help them in that. So what we have to think about is, how is the person feeling and what are the behaviours telling us? So, a behaviour is caused by something, probably a communication need that's not being met. So if you think of somebody's emotional well-being, so maybe they're bored, they could be sad, they could be tired, they could be embarrassed, they could be stressed or afraid. So all those things emotionally are going on, especially for somebody with the dementia, early to middle stage dementia. All of those things are quite normal anxieties and that to have. So we have to intervene and make sure that we connect with them and we're with them and we're reassuring for them. Socially then, not being able to talk, feeling left out. I mean, one of the big things, part of our social needs or psychological needs, is to feel included. I mean, how would you feel if you found out on Monday morning that all the family were over in John's house to watch the match and you weren't invited? You think, why wasn't I invited? And that's what happens when we get dementia. We get left out. We get left behind. We get, don't bring Auntie Mary to the wedding because she'll only cause a stir and everybody will end up having to take her home. Don't bring Dad out because he's only going to get upset when he's out, so he gets left behind. So inclusion is hugely important. So anywhere at all in your day-to-day that you can help to include them in what you're doing, in conversation, even if their communication is a problem, to help to include them is really important. So lacking relationships as well. If somebody has, we all go through life and we all need physical contact or hugs, just holding hands, etc. And just because somebody has dementia doesn't mean that they don't need that anymore. We all need to feel loved. We all need that physical contact. So a hug and holding hands is important for most people. Isolation, boredom and loneliness are a huge part of dementia as well. So we have to intervene there and ensure that they're not isolated and that they're not bored. And we'll go through tips later on what to do for activities and that. We have to look at the physical environment that somebody's living in as well. Is it too hot or is it too cold? The rest of us can get up and turn down the heating or put on another jumper, but what if you can't communicate that and you can't get up and walk over and put on another jumper or turn off the heat or turn up the heat? So we need to be able to be detectives and see is the room at the right temperature, or are they warm? Are they wearing the right clothing? Is their clothing restricted? Is it too tight? Another thing, are they in pain? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Are they, all of those things that we need to be tuned into, because if somebody is hungry or if they're thirsty, they're going to be acting out. They may not be able to say I'm thirsty, but they may be just agitated, maybe walking in and out of the kitchen, and that. And so we'll come on to that in a few minutes. Look at the ways for dehydration and that. And then the environment is very, very important for somebody with dementia. If you've got a dementia, your senses are heightened in ways that things like noise and that can be very annoying to you. Some things like bright lights as well. So have a look at the environment that they're in. In the room, is it a noisy room? Is there a lot going on? Turn the TV down or the telly down or the radio down when you're chatting to them, because they'll hear this going on. You may not hear it. You're quite happy to chat with the radio, but to turn it down when you're interacting with them. In a crowded area, if you bring Dad out shopping to Tesco's and he's in great form, delighted to be going out in the car, and he's very good form this morning, and you walk into the middle of Tesco's and the next thing he starts getting agitated, he starts shouting at one of the other customers, and he's walking up and down the aisles and he's just getting really agitating, pulling stuff off the shelves. Now what's happened? We've taken him from a familiar environment and brought him into a bright, noisy, crowded place where there's so much movement going on, and he's just not able to deal with it. So we have to look at what we're doing with our people with dementia. Are we putting this on them? So maybe the next time just bring him to the local spa, still bring him out, still do the shopping as such, but bring him maybe to a smaller shop. So always look at the environment, because it can cause a lot of problems for a person with a dementia. Living in a new or different surroundings as well, or even bringing somebody new into the house, like we find with caregivers coming in. A new caregiver can cause a lot of agitation with somebody because they're a stranger. Remember, even if they come back the next day, they still see them as a stranger. So this is always a big probably problem for us, in that we train our caregivers on how to interact with the person and communicate with the person to help to ease that. But it can be a big ordeal for somebody, especially with strangers coming into the house as well. So, just for a second. Just to remember as well that along with the dementia, some people will have other medical illnesses as well. Some people may have arthritis or diabetes or whatever. But there's also things that we need when we're living with somebody or looking after somebody to look out for. And one of the big things is dehydration. We all need to drink and eat, a certain amount every day. And with drinking, we all need to have at least 8 glasses of water, is what they're saying, every day to keep us hydrated. However, how many of us actually do that? But, it's not always water. If you think of things like soups or smoothies, juices, you can have ice cream and jelly full of, plenty of fluid in that as well. So just even to get away from the fact that it has to be a glass, but it is so important that that they have a glass of something beside them constantly, so that they don't get dehydrated. Somebody who gets dehydrated can get confused. Then you think, oh, it's mum, it's her dementia, she's confused again. But it may not be. Have a look at what she's eating and what she's drinking, because malnutrition as well, if they're not eating well, they can get confused as well. So keep an eye in the fridge, keep an eye in the bin to see how they've thrown out their dinner or whatever, and just be on top of what they're actually eating. Constipation as well is very common in older people, and it can cause a lot of discomfort. So if somebody's not able to verbalise that they're constipated, just maybe to keep an eye out and to see if they have a problem with constipation, make sure that they have seen a GP and that they're managing with that. And if you think that they may be, just to maybe have them reviewed again by a GP. Depression as well, you see a lot of older people with depression, but especially with dementia and the early stages, because as you can imagine, somebody in the early stages, they know themselves they're having a problem, they know themselves that they've got these memory issues, and that and a lot of them will know that they've got dementia now as well when they've had a diagnosis. So there's sometimes depression is, you know, they can become depressed with that, and the worry of the future and everything. So just to recognise that just because mum's sitting in the chair all day and she doesn't really want to interact with anybody, it may not be the dementia that has her just sitting there. It could be that she's a little bit down. So it's always good to have a regular GP review, or back into Carew House or wherever they're linked into for their services. Infections are another area where people with dementia can actually become confused. Somebody with a urine infection can be confused within 2 to 3 hours of developing a urine infection. So it may not be that mum is really agitated today and, oh, she's really bad and her dementia is terrible today and all these negative things. It could be that she's got an infection. So be alert, watch out. Is she going to the bathroom a lot more? Is there a smell off her urine? Is she having problems passing urine? Maybe just get her down to the GP and just see, look, this is totally not like her, this is really out of sorts, but just have her reviewed as well. And the same with pain. As I say, you need to be a detective. If you get up in the morning with an earache and you don't have the facility or the ability to go and get yourself a paracetamol or to tell anybody that you've got an earache, how are you going to be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? You're going to be banging your head off the wall, or you're going to be screaming or shouting, because you can't say, I've got an earache. Nobody can see your earache. So, you might say, oh, she's really bad today, but it could be that she's in pain. So keep an eye on their medication if they're supposed to be taking pain relief, if they have a history of arthritis or whatever, and making sure that they have, as I say, GP reviews regularly as well, and just to think maybe they have got pain. Sight and hearing problems as well. Make sure their glasses are clean. I know I need my glasses, and I'd say I probably clean them about 50 times a day. They may not be able to do that, so maybe make sure their glasses are clean them for them, and their hearing aids, make sure they're wearing them and that they're working properly, and that they've got the battery is working as well, available for them. Oral hygiene as well. Sometimes we love to give baths and showers and put on nice clothes and maybe do the hair, but some people forget about the oral hygiene, which is really important for all of us to have, obviously, good oral hygiene and brushing of our teeth or dentures or whatever. So just check in that mum is able to do her teeth, or help her, assist her along with that, and regular visits to the dentist as well is important. Connecting with the person then. This is one of the big things, one of the biggest parts that you'll play when you're living with somebody with dementia or caring for somebody with dementia. Your non-verbal, visual, verbally and physically, you're going to connect with them. Warm, friendly smile. This is all very simple communications, but it is crucial for somebody with dementia who has communication problems. Your warm, friendly smile, your good eye contact, and always getting down to their level. Don't stand over them. If they're sitting in a chair, go down on your hunkers beside them or pull a chair up beside them and be on their level. It's so much nicer than someone leaning down over them. Express a friendly greeting always when you meet them, because you may walk into the room and initially they may not recognise who you are. So, maybe it's, hi, it's Helen here. How are you, Mum? When you come into the room. The key is staying calm and moving slowly. Don't rush them. If you go at somebody quickly, like, you'd go up and say, Mum, wait till I tell you, this is going to frighten them. Any of those sudden movements will frighten them. So keep things calm and keep things slow things down. And respect their space as well. Don't get too close to somebody if they feel they don't, if they're not used to it, if they never really liked somebody getting too close. Respect their space. And speaking slowly and clearly. so that they can understand you. There's no point in speaking with a big long sentence like, come on mum, I've got lovely fish for dinner, and if you come in and sit down, I'll join you and then we'll have dessert. Like that, there's just no way somebody with a dementia will be able to follow a sentence like that. So keeping sentences short. Mum, come on, I have some nice fish. Will we go into the kitchen? That's a lot easier to follow, and they'll be able to, cooperate or come with you then. So connecting with the person again, so using a comforting tone of voice. Our tone of voice tells a lot, and somebody that is not communicating with verbally and will rely hugely on your body language. So your tone as well as your body language. Be very careful of your tone, and we all know when somebody gets annoyed, their tone goes up. So just to be careful of that. Listen carefully for what they're trying to say, and that can be, you need a lot of patience sometimes, but to show you're listening, leaning forward, sitting beside them, and focusing on what they're saying, and trying to draw the conversation out from them, because for them to know that you're listening, if you're not listening, they're just being rejected again. So, and allow time to respond. And as I said earlier on, give plenty of reassurance. This is a time when people are living in a fog and they're very, very unsure and scared, and this fear is a big part of it. So lots of reassurance. One of the things as well is limiting choices. If we give somebody too many choices, you can confuse them, although it is still good to give a choice of one or two things. Focus on their feelings and be flexible, and that's a key. We have great plans. We might say, I'm going to go over to Mum this afternoon and I'm going to go bring her shopping, or we're going to go for a walk, and then we're going to call in and see Mrs. So-and-so on the way home. But the best laid plans, this may never happen. And that's why we have to let it go. Be flexible. If she just doesn't want to go for her walk, and you might have set up the afternoon, set up the appointment with Mrs. Brown down the road, but you know what? It may not happen, and this is what we have to learn when we're with somebody with a dementia. Things don't happen the way we plan. So be flexible, and maybe not today, maybe another day, or maybe in an hour's time we'd like to go for that little walk. Maybe not call in on Mrs. Brown, but just to go for the walk. So be flexible. If you go in with that attitude, it's easier for you. Treating the person with dignity and respect at all times, and I know Siobhan talked about me doing person-centred care module in DCU at the moment, and this is what we talk about, is connecting with the person as for who they are, not Mary with the dementia, but Mary who had a whole life behind her with life story, where she lived, where she grew up, her family, her friends, her hobbies, her work, her likes, her dislikes, things that made her mad, things that made her sad. All of those things are who Mary is, and that's her identity, and that's who we need to link in with, and not Mary now that has the dementia. It's the person before that we need to continue to link in with. Also limiting distractions. I spoke earlier on about turning radios and TVs off. And the other thing too, if you have family visiting, sometimes it's easier to visit in twos rather than bringing a crowd into the room, because they can get agitated very easily. You might find, somebody comes over with the children and they're getting agitated. So gently, and ones and twos, it's easier for them than big crowds. Obviously looking at their non-verbal communication. So are they grimacing? Are they laughing, smiling? Are they maybe waving their fist? Are they banging the table? Are they looking out the door? Try and see what they're trying to say. Are they looking for somebody? Are they bored? Maybe they'd like to be doing something. Are they in pain? Are they cold? All of these things. So pick up on their verbal communications. And a key for yourselves is not to take things personally. I know it's Mum, and if she is angry at you, you can take it personally, and it can be very difficult. And somebody can be shouting at you, they might be cursing at you. It's the disease that's causing this. Just to try and remember that it's not your mum, it's not who she is and who she was, it's just the disease of her brain that's causing her to be like that. And keeping a sense of humour at all times. We all love to have fun. And I know when my family come over, we have great laughs and giggles about things, and I would hope that when I've got dementia that they'll still come over and we'll have great laughs and giggles. So try and bring fun and humour into it as well. And another thing, assist in maintaining skills. you know, just because mum or dad or husband or wife has dementia doesn't mean that we have to do everything for them now. Now you've become their caregiver, now I have to do everything. The key with dementia is to allow the person to continue doing everything for themselves that they can, maybe with some assistance. So if it's getting dressed or making a cup of tea or setting the table, you know, help them with it, but allow them to do it and give them the time to do it. Because if you allow them to continue doing it, they may be able to keep that independence alive for longer. So just always to assist, but not to take over. And what we say is to do with the person and not do for the person. Because sometimes, you know, we get this big caring feeling, I want to do everything for mum or dad, and, you know, but you know what? If it's putting clothes in the line and mum has always done it, let her help you. Get her to come out and help you put the clothes in the line. Or if it's just preparing lunch, Mum, will you butter the bread there for me, and I'll cut up the ham. Things like that, and getting her involved and getting her working with you rather than taking over from them, because they will lose skills if they're not continuing doing them. Don't deny their experience, it is their reality. So if they're saying black is white, if they're saying that they want to go home and this is their home, and they want to get out because they want to go home and they don't recognise it, don't say, Mum, don't be silly, this is your home, you know, for goodness sake, this is where you live, this is where Dad is. You know, just say, oh, you feel you're not at home. Oh, remember when you used to live in Donegal, and remember when you lived with John and David and you used to go out and talk about the home, and you know the person, which is the good thing, because you have a good understanding of who they are and their background, so you can talk about their background to them. So that's really key, is being with them and validating their feelings and understanding if they're upset about something. Oh, Mum, are you feeling sad about that? I know I get upset sometimes when that happens, rather than saying, oh, don't worry, that'll be fine. That's dismissing them. So be with them and be with them with their feelings. And, you know, they'd feel so much more reassured and protected with that. Compliment them. We all need compliments. If you think about today or yesterday, how many compliments did you get? Oh, I love your hair today. That's a really nice jumper on you. You know, I like that. Where did you buy that? We all get this. Or, Mum, that was a lovely dinner. And we need to hear these things. We need to hear them on a daily basis. And so does the person with the dementia. They need to hear all about, you know, how well they're looking. And it was great to be over, Mum. I really enjoyed watching the movie with you, or whatever. I really enjoyed the walk out into the garden with you today. Compliment them. Their self-esteem is low. They need to feel reassured and complimented, you know, continuously. So every day, you know, complimenting. Asking their opinion. What do you think, Mum? You know, it's obvious handing back control really to them, because, as I say, they're losing their independence. What do you think? What would you like to do? Avoid arguing, and I said validate their feelings, and have a positive attitude, and have fun as well. I think that's the key to the best you can. So this is a little activity that I just want you to think about. If I asked you to count back from 107s, and if I asked one of you here in the room, and I pointed to one of you here in the room to do it there on the spot, how would you feel? We probably have a few mathematicians now, but generally speaking, nobody would like to be pointed and asked, would they? We can all do it. We have it in our head. I can do it, but I probably have to go away and think about it. Some of us might have to write it down, but that's okay, it's there. But I want you to think about the person with dementia, and you show them a photograph and you say to them, Mary, who's that in the photograph? And they know who it is because they have a sense of who it is, but they haven't a name. So what do? How are they feeling? You've put them on the spot. They're in the shop and they're standing at the counter, and the shop assistant says, Mary, what do you want? What is it you want? And you know what you want, but you can't put a name on it, and you need to go think about it. And the queue is forming, and people are shuffling, and there's coughing and the shopkeeper's getting annoyed. What happens? Embarrassment, fearful, agitation, and the whole thing it can extend or get worse. So it's just to stop and think. If you're asking somebody with the dementia questions, am I putting them how am I making them feel uncomfortable? So, you know, if you have photographs and you're using them in your life story, or sitting down going through photo albums, label the photographs so that if somebody is there that doesn't know who's in the photograph, you can say, oh look, there's John, and do you remember his wedding, and do you remember there's Peter, and do you remember what he got up to after the wedding, and all the rest of it. So you can actually use the names rather than asking them who's that, because they'll just say, oh, put that away, I don't want to see it, because you're putting them under pressure. And the same with spell world backwards. Now I know it's written there so it's easy for you, but if I asked you to spell it, we'd have to think about that too. Life journey or life story. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about the benefits of life story, but it is a really, really important thing that you can do for the person with dementia at home. It's all about their life, looking at their history, where they lived, what they did as hobbies, where their likes and dislikes, where they went to school, their friends, their family, and all, where they went on holidays. And if you can gather as much information as you can and bring it together in a book and get them to help you, maybe get your Pritt stick out and you can sit down, and it can be a lovely activity, building a book together, or building a box. It doesn't have to be a book, everything can go into a memory box. That in itself is a really, really good tool to have, especially if somebody is starting to get agitated, because you can open that at any page and you can start a conversation around anything that's to do with them, which is person-centred. It's all about them, and it's about their identity. It's including them. It's about where they went on holidays and what they enjoyed doing. So even if the communication is poor and people find it hard to interact with mum now, she's sitting there, and you know, John, the son, comes in and, Mum, how are you? Great. And you know, she's there sitting and there's no communication. He says, I'll go out and see, well, would you like a cup of tea? And they kind of work around her. But to actually engage with her, to have a book to open up or a box to open up full of memories that you can immediately start talking about. And it's so comforting for them because it's all about them. And that's the key. So anything that you can pull together on their life story into a box or into a book is very, very worthwhile. And getting families involved. Grandchildren are great for going out. They can download off the internet places where they lived or where they worked, or, you know, holidays or whatever. So get everybody involved in doing that. It's a very worthwhile exercise. And if somebody does go into a care home afterwards, they can bring this with them, so the staff and the care home can look at it and say, oh look, we know who Mary is now, we know who Tom is, we know that he was a carpenter, and we know that he loved his garden, and look at the lovely photographs of his garden. So we're not just looking at Tom with the dementia. So very important, and I would highly recommend that you would pull all these together. And also it helps to minimise behaviours. If somebody's getting agitated, it's a good time to pull out the memory box or the life story box. Some of the behaviours then, if somebody is acting up or acting out with a behaviour, some of the tips that you can use. I have 4 tips here that can work. Now, not everything's going to work every time, but you can try. At least it's a toolbox of things to try. Giving simple choices. It helps your loved one to feel in control. It may allow them to calm down. So instead of saying, your dinner's ready, come out to the kitchen, and they start refusing and getting annoyed with you, would you like fish or chicken for dinner today, Mum? And maybe show them the fish or the chicken, because that gives them back control and they can make a decision themselves, and sometimes it helps them to calm down. And don't use phrases, do this or do that, because that only just agitates them. So. Apologising and take the blame. So even if it isn't your fault, an apology will sometimes solve the problem. You know, Dad, come on, we're going out for a walk now. Remember we said we'd go out for a walk? Here's your coat. Go away, I don't want my coat. Go away, I'm not going for a walk. Go away. But you said you were going out for a walk. No, go away, go away. Come on, Dad, you said. And what's going to happen in that situation is he's only going to get more agitated. Your levels of agitation are rising, and both of you are agitated by the end of it. And that's not going to solve it. To turn around and say, oh Dad, I'm sorry, oh I thought I said we'd go for a walk, listen, I'll put it away, and sure, look, we'll have a look at the TV, or I'll get, you know, something that he likes to do instead, and redirect him away. And you know, you could try again in half an hour, and maybe then it might work. So use these tools. So the choice is apologising, even though you sometimes might not want to apologise, but it can work to diffuse the situation. And redirecting, and this is something that works very well in a lot of situations. So changing the topic or focus helps to change the mood from bad to good. Somebody with a dementia, their short-term memory can be very, very short, so they may not remember if they're agitated about something, and you redirect them to something that they really like. It could be your life story book or box. It could be take a walk in the garden. It could be come on in, we'll make a nice cup of tea and nice biscuits. It could be come on, we'll ring Mary on the phone, you can talk to her. Whatever it is that they like or enjoy doing, you can direct them, and that often takes the heat out of what they're doing and helps to reduce the agitation. And it can be used in most behaviours, repetition and also sexually inappropriate behaviour. And techniques to minimise behaviour then as well, physically removing the items or your loved one from the environment. So that's bringing them away from a situation if they start to get agitated. Like I said, in the Tesco supermarket, or if a lot of family members come in, maybe just get them to go into the kitchen and leave Grandad alone for a few minutes. Or even if there's something like a plant in the room that they're thinking that it's a person or that, so bring them to another room and redirect them to another topic. So things like a book out of place can actually annoy somebody. I know I'm a great one for giving out about shoes left out, and I'm always saying you'll break your neck, and the children are laughing at me and they're still saying none of us have yet. But things like that can annoy people, and if somebody can't communicate it and that, they might start getting really agitated. So keep clutter low, get rid of clutter in the house. If they think there's somebody in the garden, move them to another room. Be reassuring and say, oh, I know that's very frightening. Come on, we'll go to another room. And crowds and noise as well, as I said, can agitate them. So be proactive, know what they're capable of doing, and use the 30-second rule. So if you see somebody getting agitated, intervene quickly, give the choices, apologise, bring them to another room, redirect them. Do that quickly, because that will help to stop the escalation of the behaviour. And try 3 times, 3 different ways. It might work today, it mightn't work tomorrow, it might work now and it mightn't work in 10 minutes, but try all the different tools that you have as best you can. The other thing too, for somebody with a dementia, just because somebody has a dementia doesn't mean they have to be inactive. If you think about all the things that you did from this time yesterday until now, the last 24 hours, you'd have hundreds of things written down. So people with dementia need to be active as well. They need to be doing things and doing worthwhile things that they enjoy doing. It helps to build self-esteem. It helps a bit of fun and happiness to be active and doing things that they're enjoying. It also helps physical fitness and strength, and it helps to reduce behaviours that need to be managed or need to be minimised. And helps with activities of daily living. Sometimes, doing activities around bathing or showering or getting dressed, to discussing fashion and clothes, and that can actually help. So keeping somebody active. And when I'm talking activities, I'm not talking about Scrabble or bingo or that. Activities are everything we do, from brushing our hair to going out for a walk, to maybe dusting, maybe hanging clothes on the line, maybe sanding a piece of wood. All of these things are activities. So anything at all that somebody was interested in doing before is what you need to have them doing, getting them involved in doing, and helping them. Sometimes they may not be able to do it. Folding clothes even, putting away, tidying drawers out, that kind of thing. Polishing shoes. I know my father was a great one for polishing shoes, or shining silver as well. And they're rewarding jobs. People would have done them for years, and to sit at the kitchen table with a bit of newspaper on it, and to get them to, even if it's 10 minutes that they're active for and enjoying, well, that's beneficial and will help to build their self-esteem. Because with activities we can improve mental, physical, and our social health as well. So just going to move on a little bit faster here. Sorry now. So another thing too, if somebody has poor communication, one of the things that, if you're thinking of activities, think of the senses. Touch, hearing, smell, taste and sight. So touching, maybe even petting a cat or a dog if they liked pets. Even a little hand massage, something as easy as a hand soak and patting the hands dry and rubbing some moisturiser in. Something like that can be very, very beneficial and comforting. Hearing, I just can't say enough about how important music is. For most people, music is really, really, it just stirs up so many memories, and we all know that when we hear music, it brings us right back to that dance floor where we were 100 years ago or whatever. So music is powerful. If you can, find out what their music that they love, and just play it, and you know, if they're able to dance, or, you know, bop along with them, sit in the chair and sing along with them as well. It's really powerful. If somebody can't communicate, just even having that music, they seem to be able to enjoy the music. It taps into their past, and smells as well. So even baking or smelling flowers, anything at all that you can get to smell. Even peeling an orange. Think of the senses in that, the colour of the orange, and peeling it, and the juices and the smell and the taste. So you've all that. Something as simple as that. You know, if somebody has very poor communication, you know, even doing that as a little activity it can be good. Tasting as well. So tasting different flavours. And sight, so plenty of colourful books and magazines, and, you know, with big you know, the pages that they can see. National Geographic, you can get some lovely animal you know, books on animals and that kind of thing, to look through. So anything that's colourful and bright that they can enjoy. So sometimes it's hard to get them going. Sometimes, Mum, would you like to go for a walk? No. Would you like to play cards? No. Would you like to help me fold the towels? No. So how do you get around them? Because we do need to get them doing and being active. So start the activity on your own. A lot of the time they'll follow you. If you sit beside them and start folding towels and leave some beside them, they may just, because you're modelling, they may just follow you and do it. Give simple instructions. Show them how to do it. Or simplify or modify the task. So break it down into smaller pieces, and they may be able to follow you that way. And then ask them for help. That's always a good one. Mum, will you give me a hand with the dishes, or will you help me set the table? You know, they might do it a lot easier than say, Mum, will you set the table? So just to ask them to help you. And just things like personal care, and then just make sure that you keep routine and preferences. So if they prefer a shower or a bath, or just even a wash by the sink, and, you know, a lot of older people wouldn't have had a shower, and they may very much turn against having a shower or a wash. So sometimes a wash by the sink is plenty, and it's fine, and by giving them the choice as well, what would they prefer? And obviously breaking it down. If you're showing somebody how to brush their teeth, breaking it down into smaller things, like showing them how to put the toothpaste on the brush, and modelling, showing them how to brush their teeth. That might just prompt them to do it themselves as well. And obviously giving choices in clothes and what they'd like to wear. And be descriptive and give cues. So if you're getting dressed, it's good to show them a red jumper or a blue jumper or a pink blouse or a green blouse. Mum, which one would you like to wear? Rather than just being in the bedroom and say, what do you want to wear today? Because they won't know how to answer. So show them the clothes. Give them a choice of one or two. And create pleasant diversions and rewards, and model. As I said, model, show them how to do it by doing it yourself beside them. You can create a spa-like atmosphere at bath time. Buy favourite lavender soaps and lotions to help create a pleasing experience. And there's the toothbrushing as well, to stand in front of Dad in the mirror while you help from standing behind, so he can still see what he's doing. And sometimes even a bit of music in the bathroom might help if somebody's, you know, not willing to have a wash or shower. Sometimes even having nice warm towels and a little bit of music can help. Dressing obviously can be a problem too, so go with clothing and shoes that are easy to slip on, such as those with Velcro fasteners. You know, sometimes older people, they didn't wear tracksuits, and what happens when people have communication problems, or they become a little bit confused, or they have trouble dressing? What do? We put them into tracksuits. Now, I know older people didn't wear tracksuit, and maybe they don't want to wear a tracksuit. So, you know, a good seamstress or a friend that's good at needlework can put in a little bit of Velcro in the fly and the top of the trousers, and they can still wear their suit trousers, or their nice pants or their nice skirt. So just to be aware that Velcro can work really, really well, because it's easy to open. Lay out articles of clothing in sequence, so you have the underwear on top and you work down, so that they can get dressed and they're able to follow the sequence, whereas if you just send them over to the drawer or the wardrobe, they could put things on the wrong way around. So group them into outfits and lay them in sequence for them. And offer a choice between a white shirt or a blue shirt, always maintaining personal style. Food then, sometimes, as I say, the problem as dementia progresses, people can actually refuse to eat, and that can be very difficult, very upsetting for families as well. So continue food traditions and just making the stews that they always like. Ask them to help in the kitchen. Eat with them. You know, you may have had your dinner in your own home, or you're coming over to get their dinner, but sit down and have something with them. You may not have to eat a full dinner with them, but eating is social, and we all want to have company when we're eating. And it's so much easier it's nicer for somebody to sit down with company to have dinner. So sit with them while they're having their meal. And sometimes it's easier for them, well, it is easier for them if you have a white plate on a red tablecloth so that they can distinguish the plate. If it's all white, they may not be able to distinguish it. Their perceptions and their spatial awareness can be mixed, can be depleted. So a white plate on a red or blue tablecloth. And include finger food. You know, maybe mum's not sitting down and eating a full plate of food, but maybe little bits of cheese or apple or sandwiches and that, and fruit and vegetables left out on a plate. It might be something that they prefer to turn to, you know, than eat sitting down to a big meal. Safety and security in the home. Now, these are just all the little tips at home, and I know there's the Living Well with Dementia has a good booklet on this, and I'll give you the link at the end that you can go into yourselves at home online, and they have a really good booklet on safety at home for a person with dementia. So, but this is just declutter, make sure electrical wires are safe, and heaters, just be careful with heaters and if they're using electric heaters. Rugs as well can be so dangerous for falls, and waxed floors. Don't wax the floors if they've got old polished floors. Ensuring grab rails and getting the OT or the public health nurse in to assess and have the correct supports in the home from that point of view. And sturdy furniture so that there's not little lamp tables that they can lean on and fall over. Good lighting, just to make sure, you know, you might think it's nice to have dim lighting at night time, but they may need to have good lighting in all the rooms. And I spoke earlier on about their glasses and the hearing aids. And temperature regulators on the radiators and that. Another one is removing the sink stopper. Sometimes if they leave the stopper in and forget to turn off the tap, so that's always another idea as well. Making sure the food in the fridge is in date. Signs for the rooms and functions. So when somebody's got dementia and they're trying to navigate their way around their own home, they may not be able to differentiate between the doors in the hall or the doors in the landing. They're all white nearly in everybody's house, or else they're all wooden. So it's a good idea to put signs up on the door or a photograph on the door of the room that's inside, especially for the bathroom, so that they can easily access the bathroom, because it can be so frustrating if they can't find the room. Removing dangerous objects, sharps, detergents and chemicals. Having smoke alarm, carbon monoxide alarm. No smoking signs. That's if, just to somebody that tends to have a cigarette. Sometimes if they see a no smoking sign, they think, oh, I can't have a cigarette here. And obviously for their medications, it's much more important that they have them blister packed, and all the pharmacies will do that for them so that it's easier for them to access their medications. If somebody's inclined to wander, to go out and maybe get lost, it is important. It would be a good idea to get an ID bracelet. The chemists will have those. It's always a good idea to put their name and address in the pocket of all of their coats or jackets, and the carer's phone number as well on it. Advise local Gardaí of concerns if it's a common thing that they go wandering, and obviously neighbours and friends aware as well. Money management, and this can be very difficult, and probably if in the early stages that you can actually sort it out, it's important maybe to have joint account, maybe carry small cash amounts only when they're going out. Try and get bills paid by direct debits. And limit max withdrawal. I know we've come across lots of people in our care with Home Instead, and caregivers are down in Dundrum, and Molly is buying another coat today, and she was in yesterday and she wanted to buy 2 coats, and then 2 days later she's down and she wants to buy another coat because she doesn't remember. And the carer is ringing us and saying, I'm really worried, she wants to buy another coat, so we have to get family on board, and the money has to be sorted, and joint accounts on that, and max withdrawal and all of that. And then the power of attorney, enduring power of attorney, it's important that if you can at all, before the person is unable to actually to make the decision themselves, it's best to get them to agree to this before they are unable to make that decision, because it's harder then after that. And just reducing noise, consider a night light at night time so that they can find their way to the bathroom. Stickers on appliances and functions, so little promotion cards like turn off the tap written on the taps. It might be the washing machine, you know, mum might be still at early stage and she can still put on a wash, but she's forgetting the actual instructions on how to do it. So even having instructions so that she can still do her wash, and just the instructions on it and how to do it. And another thing that's really good is putting photographs on presses. If somebody comes into a kitchen, what do we see now? Complete presses, and we don't even see fridges and washing machines anymore. They're all covered behind doors. So actually we all have these, well, most people have phones now. You can take a photograph of what's inside the press and just, if you can, print it off and just stick it in the front, so that when they walk into the kitchen they'll know where to go and be able to access what they need. It's all about empowering them to be able to access stuff themselves, rather than us having to get everything for them as well. So a large clock in the kitchen, and that helps to orientate them to time and place. And also if you can have a date up every day as well, and a calendar. A calendar is a great idea, even to have a big one out on the kitchen table, and if you can cross off yesterday and have written exactly who's calling today, maybe you have a caregiver or another family member calling, or it's a doctor's appointment, but cross off the day before so that it can help to orientate them as well. A visitor's book too is a good idea, so anybody that's coming to visit to write in the book. As I said, pictures on the doors, the toilet, cupboards and the fridge as well, so that they can access them freely. And mirrors, sometimes mirrors cause distress, and if they are causing distress, just cover them or take them down. I know we did have one lady that used to go for lunch every day to a restaurant and with the caregivers, and on the way into the restaurant was downstairs. On the return on the stairs there was a big mirror, and she used to stop at the mirror and she'd always invite the person in the mirror down for dinner with her. So she was never distressed, but sometimes it can distress people. It's whether they see themselves and recognise that they're old or that they're afraid of the person in the mirror. We don't know, but they can be distressing. So so that's now to come on to the caring for yourselves, and this is hugely important, because working with somebody or living at home with somebody or caring for somebody at home with a dementia can be so stressful and can take over your life. When you start caring for somebody, you almost leave your own identity behind, and now you become a caregiver. So you have to really think about yourselves and not to lose your own identity, to think about your hobbies, your exercise, your relaxation, your friends, keeping socially active, physically active. All of these things are crucial. If you don't keep up these, you'll end up wearing yourself out, and you'll be ill, you won't be able to continue caring for the person. So think about the emotions. I'm sure there's lots of emotions going on. There's maybe anger, there's denial, there's, you know, sadness, loneliness, frustration. There's lots of emotions going on for somebody who's caring for a person with dementia. So think about them and see what is causing the emotions, and what can you do to help that situation, and what kind of measures can you take. So ask for help. Sometimes we think we're the only ones that can do the care as well as anybody, and that we would be afraid to ask my brother John to come in because he wouldn't really know what to do. But ask for help. John coming in for 2 hours 3 times a week isn't going to do Dad any harm. He'd be delighted to have the different company, and you need that time. You need to get out and you need to get away, whether it's to go and read a book or to go and run a mile or to go and play golf. Whatever it is, you do need to get that time for yourself. So do ask for help. Friends and neighbours and that are only willing to help, and even if it's somebody to go to the shops for a few groceries for you, or even to come in and sit with Dad while you get out to the shops, that might be even better for you than sitting in and waiting for them to come back. So keep a journal. So write down the plan for the week and keep a calendar and make sure in that calendar that you have spaces for yourself in that calendar every day. Join a support group. There's lots of different groups now, the Alzheimer's Society and that, and there's Alzheimer's cafes and that. You know, once you hear other people in the same position, it'll make you feel that little bit better, and you might pick up tips from other people as well that can help you. So that's a good idea. Talk to a friend, take a break, obviously take care of yourself. So things like relaxation techniques or reflexology, yoga, exercise, you know, meditation, mindfulness, anything at all, getting your nails done, going to the pub with your friends, have a glass of wine, whatever it is, just mind yourself and make sure you're taking care of yourself. And let it go. We do try to do everything perfect, you know, when we're caring for somebody, especially a loved one, and we do want everything to go really well. But sometimes that doesn't happen when somebody has dementia, and we have to just let it go and be flexible and take it. Okay, it didn't work today, maybe tomorrow, and as I say, and don't take things personally. And then just making decisions, make sure that you find out what your benefits are. Driving as well, talk to GP about the person driving if you have concerns around that, your financial matters, legal affairs, power of attorney and all of that. And as I say, those things can be answered next week. As I say, the more you become informed, the more you're able to deal with situations. And just confidence to care at home is Home Instead's information about dementia on our website, so you can go on to homeinstead.ie, and there's a huge amount of information there on our website. And just to say as well, if you know, to have a caregiver coming in for a couple of hours a day or an hour or two in the day, a couple of times a week, can actually help you to get away and get some time for yourself. And there is tax relief out there for caregivers. Or for family members. Anybody at all in the family can avail of the 40% tax relief, and I don't think a lot of people realise that, because I know it is expensive, but there is that tax relief, so to be aware of that as well. We have our book Confidence to Care there as well that you can access. We have some of them there you can have a look through, and we also have an app for your phone that you can download from the website that has hundreds of tips on situations with dementia and how do you cope. So that's a really good thing to have. You can look up anything on that and have it on your phone as an app. And two of the good things, if you want to link in online, then the Dementia Elevator Programme in DCU, they've brought out a carer's coping skills. It's actually family training online. So it's a very good, short but very interesting information on caring for a family member at home, and I have the link there. But if you go into DCU Dementia Elevator Programme, it'll come up there. You'll be able to link into that for, you know, and get more information there. And then the Living Well with Dementia Programme in TCD as well, a practical guide to daily living for caregivers, and that is good. That has all the tips that we talked about, but in a lot more depth. I know I've gone very fast through it all, so that's more if you want. And as I say, we have a lot of information on Home Instead as well. And just that Home Instead offers companionship services and home help services, and anything from an hour to 24-hour care in the home. And we've been in Ireland now since 2005. And thank you. It was very fast.